listening to the Marketing Happy Hour podcast, where we discuss career and industry insights with our peers in marketing.
We're here to talk about it all, like the ups and downs of working in social media,
how to build authentic relationships in the influencer and PR space,
managing a 9-to-5 and a side hustle at the same time,
how to be productive in your life and career without losing your sanity, and more.
Ultimately, we're here to build a community with you because we're all trying to navigate the world of marketing together.
Are you ready? Grab your favorite drink and join your hosts, Cassie and Erica, for this week's episode. Okay, Marketing Happy Hour listeners, we are back for another week. It's so crazy to me. We used to take a break in between, every 2 months or so and call those our seasons and our season breaks. But now we're in this never-ending season and it's so fun and we get to just produce a lot more content for all of you and we're so excited. So thanks for tuning in. And this week we are chatting with Cassie's client, Melissa Meredith, a B2B strategist, marketing consultant, and B2B agency owner. If you're not familiar with the term B2B, it actually just stands for business to business. And Melissa breaks that down a little bit, the differences between business to business and business to consumer marketing in this week's episode. She also shares her favorite brand positioning tips and how to repurpose your existing content into other types of content so you're not actually constantly in a state of creation and therefore don't get burnt out. She also gives some insight around asking for feedback and why she says don't be afraid to go slow. I can't wait for you to learn all of these things from Melissa, so grab your favorite drink and let's listen in together.
Hey, Melissa, how are you? It's so good to have you today on Marketing Happy Hour. You and I have worked together closely the last several months, and it's been such a joy. So excited for everyone else to get to meet you, but welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Yes. Well, as always, before we dive in, we do have to ask you a very, very important question. Melissa, what is in your glass this afternoon?
My normal answer would be red wine, but I'm participating in Damp January and had my little damp phase over the weekend. So it's a 60-ounce jug of water that I am on a mission to finish today.
Love it. Amazing.
I'm right there with you with the water. I've got I don't know what this holds, 40 ounces or something. Right there with you.
Yes. I also have water and I have hot tea as well. I was just kind of feeling it, even though it's not very cold out anymore, but I love Harney and Sons hot tea. And so had to grab some of that.
Oh, that's the best brand of tea. They have a vanilla. It's actually a decaffeinated vanilla black tea, which is something I had never heard of before, but it's amazing. So that's awesome.
I'll have to check that out. That sounds really good.
Yeah. Yes. Well, Melissa, it's my first time meeting you. So I would just love to hear all about your journey in the marketing world up to now. What kind of led you into starting an agency in business to business marketing?
Yeah, very loaded question. So I'll try to give you the Cliff Notes version. I moved to Tampa right after I graduated college back in 2013. I have to think of the years now. It seems so long ago. And got a job full time with a company in-house. I was fresh out of college, super green. And they're like, you're going to be our entire marketing department.
Oh, cool. Goodness.
I got it until you make it right. But they were in B2B marketing. And I felt like all through college and the classes and a lot of your marketing experience pushes you in more of a B2C direction or B2C knowledge and skill set. And so I really, when I say fake it till you make it, I really hope they don't hear this because I really had to fake it till I made it for the first year. Everything from strategy to blog execution to website development to working with an agency on brand development fell on me. But it was awesome because I am definitely a hands-on learner. You can give me directions all day, every day, but until I just jump in and do it, I have a hard time grasping things. So I spent a year in-house with them and just really fell in love with B2B marketing. I felt like it was all about relationship building, right? Not to say that B2C marketing isn't, but it's definitely more that quick turnaround, quick sales cycle, where B2B is all about putting your customers and their problems first, and it's solution selling. And then I was only in-house with them for a year and decided that corporate America was not my bread and butter. And so went off on my own, did social media, did some consulting, did brand development, and really kind of just tried to take on as many roles as possible in the B2B space, but still in the marketing realm, to really get a grasp on all of the ins and outs. And then back in, again, I have to think of years now because that I'm showing my age. 2019, I launched Content Creative, and it really came from a place of, throughout that journey in all of that B2B marketing experience, I felt like there was really a void. You have marketing agencies, right, which really focus on deployment and execution of paid tactics or marketing campaigns. And then a lot of times you'll have your creative agency where they're creating the assets, the content, the pieces. But there was really kind of a gap in the middle where, from a strategy perspective, it's not that neither agency was leading with strategy, but it just felt like there was this the gap between the two. And I have always been very much a strategic thinker. I've always led with strategy. And so it just felt like a natural progression to kind of take that leap and launch a B2B strategy agency that also knew and understood the execution piece and knew and understood the campaign and the data piece, but also understood the creative and how important that was and how all of those things came together, but really focusing on the strategy and how are we going to do this? Like, what's our roadmap here? So,
B2B marketing for us is a very fresh new topic. I'm sure we've kind of touched on it a little bit here and there, but just really would love for you to share with us how it differs from B2C marketing. What are some of the key differences that you have seen throughout your years?
Yeah. So especially when I'm talking about like what I'm providing for clients, right? Like when we're talking about a strategy, social is part of it, but in B2B marketing, like social is a really small portion of client strategy or client's plans. If it is social, it's usually LinkedIn. Whereas like on the B2C side, social is such a huge part of what you're doing. Likewise, in terms of content, right? Like we're talking sales presentations, go-to-market decks, like just the actual pieces and assets you're creating vary so differently. And then when you're talking about like even what it is that the client or the my customer is putting forth, we're really leading from a place of what solution are we providing and what problem are we solving. And again, not to say that B2C doesn't do that, but it's a lot of product selling, not solution selling. So a lot of it comes down to just even the language and how are we differentiating ourselves. And if we're selling a service and not even a product, like how do we even get people to understand that service and why they want or need that service?
Absolutely. And you mentioned a little bit on this specific question I'm about to ask, but how do you specifically within Content Creative approach marketing strategy with your clients?
Yeah, it's a very interesting place because I'm someone that comes in and I like to work with my clients on a consulting basis for the first couple months, because a lot of times I've had clients come to me and they're like, we want to do a content strategy, let's go forward. And we do it. And then 2 months down the road, we realize like that's not what they needed at all. And they would have been better off to work with me for a couple months on just a consulting basis to really dive in and figure out like what are the actual problems here. And I think that is very different because it kind of speaks to my personality a little bit. I am very much a like, let's just wing it and figure it out and then figure out like what we're actually supposed to do here. By no means am I winging it with my clients, but just going in and really doing that deep dive and that discovery and the analysis, looking at, their data, their analytics, like what are we trying to accomplish? What are your objectives? What are your goals? And then where are we falling short? And then kind of finding that weakest link and then saying, okay, based on this is what we should do, whether it's a content audit, a brand new content strategy, or, we really need to redevelop your website because your website, your bounce rate is through the roof, and your website is where you're housing all of this content and really bringing people into your funnel, and it's failing you. So I know that's not a specific answer, but it's really all dependent on the client and kind of where they're at in their own business.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you addressed how client needs can change over time. I was actually literally just on a leadership mastermind call earlier today, and the guy that was speaking mentioned how he's really shifted his business over the last few months to be kind of approached in these 90-day sprints with clients versus signing contracts that are 12 months long and it's all the same scope every single month, because you really don't know how the needs and the approach of a business that you're serving is going to change over that time. And so I love how you mentioned just having more of those bite-sized consulting agreements and then maybe shifting into more of those long-term strategic approaches. I think that's a really great reminder for just people in the client space here listening, or if you're a freelancer, a really great way to just approach those relationships. That's awesome.
Yeah, I love that you use the word serving, because it's so funny to me. I actually got into marketing because all through high school and college, all of my jobs were serving, so like restaurants, bars, etc. And marketing just felt like a very natural progression of taking that experience and that serving side of me, because you really are serving someone. And when you go into a business, so many agencies, I feel like, take the perspective of, this is what we're going to do, this is what we've always done, and this is why we're doing it. And I look at it as like, no, I'm here to serve you. I'm here to make you better. I'm here to help you be better, because if you're not getting better, then I'm not doing my job. And it really comes from that like servant's heart perspective. And that's why I really take the approach I do of, let's not just go in with a set, like, this is what we're doing and this is the scope and we're doing this for 12 months. Like, let's feel each other out for a couple months. Let's see how we can work together and how I can help you. And maybe it's even not a good fit, and that's completely fine. But taking that servant and serving approach in business is extremely important to me.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I love that so much. Let's talk just a little bit about brand positioning. Is that a foundational piece for your clients? And why is it important to get it right? How can brands kind of know when they have that right?
Right. No, I love that. So the number one answer for me on anything is looking at data and analytics. Like, I'm a big numbers nerd. And I think that in terms of like knowing when you get it right, you have to know your KPIs and your goals going into it, right? Like, what are we actually trying to measure? What are we even looking for in terms of performance goals? A lot of times in the B2B space, it's not even sales numbers. Sometimes it's, number of contact form submissions. Sometimes it's number of trial users. So really understanding like, what are we trying to measure first? And then looking at like, what language is going to attract or appeal the most to this person we're trying to reach. Like, how are we going from point A to point Z, and what is that whole middle experience? And I think even looking at, like, I like to throw in and integrate things in brand positioning that maybe aren't the normal experience, but like customer service. If people are contacting your customer service team, like, are they getting a consistent experience? Are they hearing the same responses? Like, what words, or how is your customer service team taught to handle the inquiries they get? Even like Nordstrom, for instance, right? We know that you can literally return anything to Nordstrom, and that becomes a part of their brand positioning, because you learn and understand that like their customer service was trained a certain way. And so I think it's important, because to me, brand positioning is what in the long road creates brand loyalty. If your brand is positioned properly and you really know your audience's wants and needs, then they're going to be loyal to you. And that all comes together through, your copy, your process, but even again, like I said, something like your customer service. Like, how are your people talking to your people?
That's awesome. And I think too, I know we have a lot of people out there who might work at smaller brands, a lot of our listeners, and they might not know if their brand positioning is where it needs to be. What would you say to someone like that? Where can they start to kind of put the pieces together to make sure everything's cohesive, just across the board, whether it is a business to business or a B2C brand?
Yeah, definitely. I am a big fan of surveys or focus groups. I think they're very underutilized, and especially if you have a network of people already that are in the same market or audience that you're trying to target, it's very easy to do. Put together a list of non-biased questions. Ask your potential customers, like, is it clear to you what we do? How does our brand make you feel? What questions do you have when you're reading these things? When you're seeing our products, like, what is unclear? Seems very simple and very like duh. But I just think that that's something that's easily overlooked. Something else too, if you're already an established brand and you're looking to kind of figure out, are we doing things right? Looking at your customer reviews and testimonials. A lot of times people will give you kind of a clear indication there of their own experience of your brand and where your brand is positioned. And like, I wish that you guys sold this, or I wish that you did this, or I called and talked to so and and had a really poor experience. And that, you know, in terms of like an actual brand positioning and like your USP and your messaging, is that somewhere you would normally look? Not really, but it can be a really good indicator on what people's perception and response is to your brand, to then help you identify the places where maybe you need to alter or shift something.
Yeah, so good. I love too the mention of surveys and focus groups, because I think we look at traditional marketing, you know, what we learn in the textbooks in school, and that's something that's mentioned from years ago, but it's still so relevant because I think a lot of times, and I tell clients this all the time, we think we know what makes sense to the customer. And until we actually ask, we don't actually know if it does make sense to them. So just getting out there and testing messaging, asking people, friends, family, potential customers, does this make sense? Is it clear? Does what we offer, is that, you know, something that makes sense to you as the target audience? And so, yes, such a good strategy there that you mentioned. Well, okay. So Melissa, looking at your website, I saw a blog post that jumped out to me, and I want to bring this up because I think this tip and strategy is going to be so huge to businesses. You created a guide for repurposing existing brand content for emails into other forms of content. So what is the benefit to you of repurposing that existing content, and what is your process for doing so? Share that with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So my mindset around repurposing content is because when content and content marketing started being a core component of so many businesses, I feel like a lot of us got in this mindset that we just need to create. And if you're really understanding your audience and you're understanding what they're looking for and you're understanding what's performing well, you don't need to constantly be in a state of creation. You can create one piece of content and then piecemeal that out into different formats and build on that. For instance, an email, right? You send out an email that's a how-to, it's a step-by-step, but maybe you're only including 3 pieces of that step-by-step in your email. And at the bottom of your email, you redirect people to your blog, right? And then your blog has the full 5 step-by-step pieces. But then you decide that you actually want to show the application of that. So then you create a YouTube video. You do a screen record of this is the step-by-step, this is how we're doing it, this is how we implement this, right? And then you do a LinkedIn post that, you know, you actually applied this within your own business, and here were the metrics and here were the results, and then create a case study. So I know that that's kind of a cyclical answer, but that's my process. And that's why I think it's so important, because if you're just constantly in a state of creating, then you're not really taking the time to see what's working. And once you really are tracking things and tracking the performance, for instance, I have a client right now, she has a blog post all about, she's in the gifting space. She has a blog post that's all about how much to spend on a baby shower gift. And our strategy right now is like diving into that and diving into that content and seeing like, why is it performing so well? Should we be following a certain format for our blogs that like maybe the way this is laid out or done is our template on how we create? Number 2, what else in terms of like content pieces should we be creating that complements this if this is bringing us so much traffic? So looking at it through that lens too is extremely crucial.
Yeah, I think that's so important. That's kind of a lesson that I learned really early on from Gary Vee. If you're familiar with him, he would always talk about creating that one big piece of content and then piecemealing it out to all those different, you know, respective platforms and things like that. So I totally agree with that. And I'm walking through that process with one of my clients right now, and it's kind of hard, but once you get into the hang of it, it's a lot easier. And I think too, that's kind of the embodiment of the work smarter, not harder, you know, mentality. It's like, you're going to get burnt out if you're constantly outputting content and things like that. So just finding ways and ways to make it easier on yourself to put that content out and across tons of different platforms is going to ultimately help you out for sure.
Right. And you have to keep in mind in that too, like how people are finding you. You may have someone that's subscribed to your email list, but they don't actually look at your blogs, or someone who looks at your blogs and is on your email list. So it's also about like understanding your audience and where they're finding you, because one piece of content, if you're only producing it in one way, you're really missing out on a big portion of your audience who's not coming to find you in that specific place, but maybe in other places.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. Well, Melissa, Cassie mentioned a little bit that you do travel a lot as well, in addition to running your business. And obviously, we all have lives to live. Do you have any tips for kind of maintaining balance? We don't really like to say work-life balance anymore because everything is melded together. But what are your best tips for some balance?
Yeah, no, I love that question. Fun fact, I actually, before I went into marketing as my major, I was a dietetics major and exercise science minor. So health and wellness is like a big thing for me. And I think it's really all about, you have your structure and you have your routine, but when you're traveling, it's natural that some of those are going to break. But like, what are your non-negotiables? For me, it's my 3 Ws: my workout, my water, my walks, right? And a lot of times, if I'm just following those 3 things that seem so simple, some of my other habits and structures and routines will continue to follow me. Um, because you've already gotten those out of the way, right? Like, let's do the rest of them. But I think it's a big component of like just finding those non-negotiables and those things that you really need to stick to, but also understanding your own evolution and your health and wellness journey and how that applies to your career. I know that for me, like some of my most productive times, like my schedule was wild. I was here, there, and everywhere, but I stuck to not drinking, like going on my walks, getting my water in, and those things allowed me to maintain a certain level of productivity and success, even in the midst of a crazy, travel schedule. So at the end of the day, it's what are those non-negotiables and why are they important to you?
Absolutely. And I've heard you talk about this too before, but approaching just kind of lulls of time. Maybe there's a client project that slowed down and you have a less busy season than a busy season. I think a lot of times, whether we're in the corporate space or we own our own businesses, we see those slow times as maybe less motivating or whatever. But how do you approach those times in your life too? What do you use that time for?
Yeah, I love that question. I'm so excited you asked that. That has been such a big part of my career. In the beginning, especially when you're working for yourself, right? You see those slow times and those slow moments, and you think like, I need to be doing more. I need to be doing more. Like I need to hit the gas pedal. And for
Mhm.
me, some of my best ideas, some of my biggest clients, some of my best work has came out of accepting the slow season, keeping off the gas pedal, and using that time to journal, go on walks. Like, don't fill the free space out of obligation. Fill the free space with things that are going to fulfill you and fill your cup. Because as soon as that busy season comes back, A, you're going to wish you would have. And B, that's again the times when like you you are allowed the freedom to plan out and map your life that you don't get the time to do when you are busy. And some, again, just I'm so grateful for some of those times because a lot of it is what's led me here today.
So
That's
good.
awesome.
So good. I love that. I know I was like, I have to have her share this because it's so good.
Every time I talk, I'm like, well, it's a slow season, but it's okay.
Yeah,
I'm good.
no,
That's
it's
awesome.
so good because we have close friends who have kind of been through that recently, and I'm like, this is such a valuable time. I know it's not great, like sometimes financially, or if a project's slowing down, it's like it's boring and you don't feel like you have a lot to work on. But it's like, how often do we just have time to be still and to think about life and to plan? And it really is a blessing, even though sometimes it doesn't come across like that.
I'm a big book reader, so some of my like most like career defining books have came from those times. And again, like
Yeah.
sitting down and reading a book in the middle of the day, you feel really
Oh,
guilty, but at the end of the day, you're
yeah.
like, this gave me some things that I would have never known otherwise.
Yes, absolutely. Well, another thought that you prompted, which I'm so glad you did, because I think this is such a wonderful, wonderful topic to talk about, is asking for feedback. So I'm curious with you, how has asking clients for feedback impacted your business? And why do you feel doing so important for professionals in the corporate space, working on a team, or even just in entrepreneurship? Why is asking for feedback so valuable?
Yeah, I think that there's been this big buzzword of vulnerability lately, right? Like, how can you be vulnerable in the workspace? Because for so long, whether corporate, entrepreneur, like whatever space you were in, it was like, no, like we're here to do the work, we're here to get it done, like push, push, push. But when you're doing that, you don't really allow humans to be humans. And at the end of the day, like humans have emotions, we have feelings. We can separate our feelings from the workspace as much as possible. But in order to know that you're doing things properly and that people are on the same page as you, like I'm really big, whether personal or professional, just like, hey, like, are we on the same page? Like, did this come out the way you expected? Like, how can I do better? I actually just had that conversation with a client a couple weeks ago. He had given me some new duties and responsibilities that I was taking care of. And I was like, hey, I know we're a month into this. Like, what is your, like, how are you feeling about this? Like, are we on the same page? Am I giving you like what your expectation was? Is there something I can do better? And the feedback he gave me, I was like, oh, I didn't even realize that was important. I hadn't been doing this thing because it wasn't important to me. It's extremely important to you. And, not to say that that relationship would have ended because of that, but just because I took the moment to be vulnerable and say like, hey, am I giving you what you want? Is this what you expected out of me? I was able to create clarity around just general scope of work that I may not have otherwise. And I think that that's so important too, because we're so conditioned to like, oh, it's my yearly review. But like if you do a big project, like ask for feedback. Like we're all continuing to learn and grow throughout our career forever. Like it never stops. And if you're not willing to take those moments and be vulnerable and accept both criticism and positive feedback, then you're not going to grow and you're going to stay stagnant.
Oh, I really love that. And I think a lot of people get stuck because they don't know how they can grow in between the times of, like you said, my annual review and my feedback at that point. But like, that is such a good tool to do, is to ask people for feedback, and you don't think about it. It's another thing that seems like, of course, but you don't think about it. I love that. Well, we're approaching the end here. We love to ask this question on the show. I think we've probably asked it in every episode, but what's something that you know now that you wish you knew early on in your career?
Don't be afraid to go slow.
That's good.
Like I'm trying not to cry right now because it's been something that we live in a culture that it's like, how quick can you get there and how fast can you do it? But so many times when you push yourself so hard, you get burnout. And you end up, and not that there's anything wrong with failing, but you end up failing because you're so determined to go fast and get to a set destination so quickly that you overlook all of these things that may have been red flags or may have been an opportunity that would have actually been better for you, but you're just like pedal to the metal. And I'm so grateful for the fact that like, going back to the part, right, about the slow season and the lulls and like what to do at that time. Those have been some of the most definitive moments for me in terms of like what's next and what the next step is. But it was because I allowed myself to go slow and not like have to form to some mold or some expectation. And it's hard. It's really freaking hard. But I think if you can just take a step back and, looking at some of the most successful people, right? Like I know we've all seen the meme where it's like Oprah didn't become blah, blah, blah until she was 42. And, that's real. Like, there's a reason why they put that out there, because we all feel like we have to do that. And I think that that's just been just so monumental for my career and my personal growth, like so many things.
Yeah, that's so good. And two, I feel like being in the digital space, we're always on social media, we're always online, just kind of like seeing what other people are doing in our space, comparison, that imposter syndrome steps in. So is there anything that you do mentally? You mentioned your 3 W's, which is amazing. So walks is one of them, obviously. Working out is another mind clearing aspect, but anything that you try to stick to or do maybe when you're feeling like that imposter syndrome is stepping in, any strategies there?
This is going to sound super vain, but I go back through and look at my past work and I'm like, no, I know what I'm doing. I'm really good at my job. And sometimes you just need that validation because you're so forward focused on like the next project, the next thing, the next deliverable. That's, I feel like, when the creep comes in, right? Because you're like, oh, well, can I? And then you sometimes you have to look back to go forwards and look at like, no, I'm crushing it. I know what I'm doing. Like, I should not feel like an imposter because I wouldn't have this portfolio if I was.
One of the best things I think I ever did is from somebody said it in like a webinar one time, and it was just an offhand comment. And they were like, keep a folder on your desktop called smile folder, or like something, super simple like that, but same along those lines, just like keeping your best work in there, people's feedback, just, having that as a motivational factor when you are feeling like what the heck is going on is just super helpful for me. And I know it's probably super helpful for a lot of people. So that's a great point.
Awesome.
Yeah, I know. It's really hard too being in the day-to-day because you experience each of those moments for yourself. But going back, Melissa, to your point about just kind of looking at your past work, maybe 5 years ago, having that 50,000-foot view of this is what I was doing then, this is what I was doing now or am doing now, and just seeing that progression over time. Because I feel like a lot of times for me, for example, I don't feel that progression because I'm in it every single moment. I'm the one experiencing it. So kind of going back and seeing little snapshots of the past, that's a great, great strategy. Well, Melissa, as we close out too, this has been such a treat of an episode. Thank you for joining us. We would love for everyone to be able to stay in touch with you, what is going on in your life and business. So tell us where everyone can connect with you.
Yeah, definitely find me on LinkedIn, Melissa Meredith. Obviously, you'll see in the graphic how to spell my name. But LinkedIn is really where I put a lot of my professional thoughts and just general business knowledge. And then my agency is at contentcreative.co. We're on Instagram. We're actually in the middle of working with this awesome lady named Cassie who's helping us revamp everything. So keep an eye out for some new IG content too. But those are the two places that you can find me.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So with that too, one last question. What is in the future for Content Creative? What are you working on right now or plan to work on in the coming months that we can look out for?
Yeah, so I've loved working with you. We have been in the process of completely revamping our positioning, our messaging, our service offering, redoing the copy on our website, really moving in the direction of a B2B strategy agency, defining what that is, defining what that looks like, and really understanding and defining how we can best serve our clients. Broad answer, but some big changes coming in the next 6 months for sure.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. It was such a pleasure. And thank you for, just being a part of Marketing Happy Hour. We're so grateful.
Awesome. I'm so glad to be here. Thank you both for having me.
And that is it for this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Seriously, we appreciate every single one of you who listens, shares our episodes on social, and reaches out to us to let us know when something resonated with you. It means so much to us to be continually investing in and growing this Marketing Happy Hour community, so thank you. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to subscribe, rate, and leave a review on your favorite podcast platform. For more Marketing Happy Hour goodies, head on over to our website, marketinghappyhr.com. Again, that's marketinghappyhr.com, and check out the blog or sign up for our email list. And as always, follow us on Instagram at marketinghappyhr. That's marketinghappyhr. Can't wait to hear from you, and we'll catch you next week. We are so excited to share that our first ever free Marketing Happy Hour digital resource is now available. Download the Dream Career Game Plan today at marketinghappyhr.com/freebie. That's marketinghappyhr.com/freebie. This 5-step workbook will guide you through defining your goals, building your network, diversifying your skills, influencing where you're at, and investing in your growth. Cassie and I created this resource with marketing careers in mind, but the framework can be applied to any industry. Our hope is that this workbook will help you truly elevate your career, whether you're in the market for a new position or just looking to make your mark in your current organization. No matter where this resource finds you, we are cheering you on every step of the way. So go check it out at marketinghappyhr.com/freebie to download and make your career dreams come true.